Hello, my name is Gloria Carrasco. I'm the lead trainer and instructional technologist at Holy Family University in the Academic Technology Department. The presentation we are going to look at today is enhancing course design with AI tools. Here we go. The learning objectives of this video is, by the end of this session, participants will be able to refine curriculum alignment. So you're going to use Gemini to audit module learning objectives for clarity and generate rubrics and create assessments. You're going to develop active learning resources, transform static documents into interactive study tools, quizzes, and audio overviews using Notebook LM. You will also design engaging multimedia by employing Nano Banana for visual graphics and Gemini Storybook to construct narrative-driven explanations for complex topics. Here we go. So the first tool we're going to take a look at is Google Gemini. And Google Gemini is a large language model, right? It is a foundational AI assistant capable of multimodal understanding. So it has text, image, and data. And it is incredibly multimodal. And we're going to take a look at that. So you can find Google Gemini on your Google Waffle right here. When you open up Google Chrome or your Gmail, you're going to see your Google Waffle. You will find it somewhere in there, and it's going to be a little star, and it's going to be called Gemini. The core capabilities of Google Gemini: it audits and revises, if we're talking about course design, right? Module learning objectives if we're talking about a lesson plan. It generates aligned rubrics and assessment criteria. And it also supports real-time deep research for up-to-date course content. Hello, so this is the Gemini page. And again, I find it on my Google Waffle, and then I go into Gemini and you can start a new chat. I just wanted to show you something that I've created. So I said my prompt was something simple. The more low-stakes formative assessments we can offer, the better. Highlighting, underlining, and rereading does not work. Cognitive science tells us that this repetitive testing works best. What is this called? Because I couldn't come up with the term, so I wanted to ask Gemini what it was, and it did. So it's told me it's retrieval practice. So then I went on and I asked more information. I added more prompts because I wanted to create like an informational page for my course about retrieval practice. So I created something that is text-based, and it does it really well. So that way you can just check the information it gives you, and as the expert, you know very well what is correct and what is not, and then you can edit it, and you can ask it to create a Google Doc for you. So for example, at the very end, you just go right here and you say expert to docs, and then you can just make sure your information is correct and edit that. You can also draft in Gmail and do other things to it, and you can also listen to the response as well if you'd like. So this is really helpful, and that is my Gemini page. So Gemini for educators. You can work with curriculum alignment. So making sure that everything aligns with your learning objectives. Quickly evaluates existing objectives for clarity and measurability. You can also check your assessments, right? So you can either design a new assessment with Gemini or redesign an assessment. So it automatically generates practice tests and grading rubrics based on specific course content, which is amazing. So it also gives you administrative relief. So it drafts emails for you. And let's say you wrote an email to your students. You can ask Gemini to use this email and create one for your parents in more formal language. So you can do lots of things like that. You don't have to reinvent the wheel, and you can just, kind of tell it to do something else with it. You can also, if you're in higher ed, create grant proposals. You can create newsletters for your parents or sharing with your, whoever you want to, with your faculty. And you can save time on non-instructional tasks. So since we're talking about designing courses, right, or lessons, right? So here is for higher ed, in course design, we use what's called a course map. And this is using the backward design where we're using the learning objectives, right, to design our courses. And let's see. So you have in a course map, you have a course overview. So you can ask Gemini to create a course overview for you based on your learning objectives, right? Or your course learning objectives. Okay. You can also ask Gemini to create course expectations. Let's say you're teaching an online class and, students may need more information because maybe they haven't taken an online class before. So you ask Gemini to create course expectations, a friendly tone and welcoming tone based on your module, on your course learning objectives. Next, you've got a class introduction prompt. So your introductory prompt, you want it to be fun and engaging. You can ask Gemini to recreate it, redesign it in order for it to be more engaging. Then we have the course map, right? The rest of the course, which will go on to module by module, which is usually week to week. So you've got your module topics, you've got your module learning objectives. And with the module learning objectives, you can just, if you have the word understand in there, we've got to redesign that, right? Because understand is not a measurable or observable task. So we are going to use Bloom's learning taxonomy to create, better MLOs, right? Learning objectives that are measurable and observable. And next, we're going to take a look at readings on multimedia and assessment. So based on your module learning objectives, you want to create assessments. So we're going to begin with that, right? So we're going to say, okay, the first week I want a discussion board, right? And you're going to say, okay, create a discussion board based on module learning objectives 1 and 2. And it will. There you go. And you can do the same thing with a reflection. That's exactly what I did. Next, you're going to curate your course content. You're say, according to these module learning objectives, right? You please curate some sources for me. So, for example, I want some podcasts. I want some videos. Curate course content for me based on these module learning objectives, and it will. Now, you have to check it because sometimes it will give you a lot, right? And you have to go through it because some of them could be fake. And, it does happen, right? So you just have to check it. And the ones that you choose go into your course. Next, for those of you that are not in higher ed, and you are working with lesson plans, with daily lesson plans, it is the same concept. You're going to take your learning objectives, right? And you're going to, again, put them in there and make sure they are observable and measurable. And again, when you're given a lesson plan by somebody else or even a district plan, sometimes those plans are, one size fits all. So you want to ask Gemini, hey, I have these students in my class. I would like to make my content more multimodal, my assessments, with the lens of universal design for learning, and it will generate really good lesson plans. Of course, as the expert, you will tweak them to your needs and your students' needs. So the next tool is Notebook LM. A Notebook LM is a walled garden. It is an AI research assistant that only uses your specific sources, only yours. So you provide those sources. You can give it PDFs, documents, web links, YouTube videos, whatever you like. And that way, and also because it's Google, it'll also use your Google, if it has your Google Drive access. So it'll use things that are in your Google Drive, right? Now, what's wonderful about this is that students are not going to go out to, a large language model or Google, and they're going to find whatever it is. And maybe the content is not correct. Maybe they get the wrong information. Notebook works only with curated sources. So if you teach the students how to use this, it's great. They will upload your content in there that you provided from your lessons or your courses, and they will, create different things with it. We're going to take a look at that right now. Now, Google Notebook is right here. So you open up your waffle and you open your notebook from right here. Hi, so I have created my Notebook LM, and you'll find the Notebook LM in your Google Waffle. So if you scroll down, you will find it right here in your Google Waffle. Okay, so let's take a look at one of my notebooks. And all I did was I uploaded, you can just add sources here, and you could add so many, like multiple sources. I uploaded 3. And the first one was I uploaded Leon Fersey's AI Specimen Scale, which I use, and also the Mosaic Approach by Chris Ostro. So just a few resources up there. It comes up with, like, it synthesizes all the sources, and it comes up with an overview. The other thing that's really amazing is that it has so many different, the studio part has so many different capabilities. It's got an audio overview, a slide deck. We've already talked about these, but these are just amazing. And some of these, as you can see, are in beta, but they work perfectly well. And I know they're going to come up with more. So this is just something we really have to take advantage of. Because we don't have time to make audios, like a podcast right now. I don't even know how to do that. I know how to make videos, but they do take a long time right now. So if it can be created for me, I can, use my time for something else. So let me just give you an example of a video right here. And this is based, again, on all of the sources that I uploaded.
Hello, everyone. If you're an educator trying to figure out this wild, confusing, and constantly changing world of AI in the classroom, then you are in exactly the right place. So let's just dive right into a new way to think about academic integrity now that AI is everywhere. First, just take a second and think back. When was that first time you just knew a student had used AI? Was it a paragraph that was just a little too...
Okay, so I just wanted to show you that. But the idea is that, you, from the sources that you curated, you have a video that explains everything, synthesizes the information. It, again, dual coding, you've got your text, you've got your, somebody talking, somebody putting up visuals. So it's really multimodal, and you can share it with a share link. So, you have to... What is really great about this is that you are creating content from text sources that you have into, a multimodal video. So this is just amazing. And again, I did not do this. Notebook LM does it for you. So it's just amazing. So I'm going to go back to my studio and show you something else. The other thing I wanted to show you is that the video is also it's got a very conversational tone, which makes it very engaging. Let's take a look at the audio one I created. I did not create. Here we go.
I see where this is going.
Yep. By the time you get to the 10th paper, you realize almost your entire class has submitted the exact same flawlessly typed, completely hallucinatory robotic essay.
It is the absolute ultimate nightmare scenario for anyone trying to measure human knowledge right now. I mean, generative AI has just completely severed that traditional link between the work a person produces and...
Okay, so I am, this is the podcast. And you're going to hear the same 2 voices all the time. Maybe in the future they'll change that. But for right now, they have those 2 voices. And it's just nice because, again, it's engaging. You've got 2 people talking about a topic. So can you imagine you teach your students how to use this. They can create study guides, they can quiz themselves. They can create flashcards from the content that's curated. So it's amazing from your course. You don't have to create study guides anymore. They can do it. And also, if they're having trouble, they can create audio overviews. They can listen to it on the bus, on the ride home from school. They can create a video overview that can show them multimodal ways of accessing the information. So it is really, really excellent. It's an amazing tool. So there are lots of different capabilities that will really help us and help our students. Okay, so some Notebook LM core capabilities, and all of them are really it's the Multimedia Studio, right? Multimedia Studio. So you've got audio overviews, realistic AI podcast hosts discuss and debate your materials, your content. Video overviews, narrated slide-based videos that visually demonstrate processes and data. You also have an interactive mode, real-time engagement, where you can join the AI podcast conversation to redirect the host or ask for deeper detail. That's incredible. And you also have other, content right here. You have mind maps, flashcards, quizzes, infographics, reports, data, and tables. But all of this is for students to engage with the course content and again, right? And the idea is retrieval practice. Highlighting doesn't work, things like writing things down doesn't work, or rereading doesn't work. What works is retrieval practice. And Google Notebook will give them lots of ways to, engage with the content and also create retrieval practice such as flashcards and quizzes. So it's amazing. I'm going to go back. All right, right here. So what I wanted to show you is this. So with the video, right? When you go to create a video, you have different ways to do this. So you can have an explainer video, or you can have something that's a little bit more brief. So maybe bite-sized, right? You can also toggle the language. If somebody wants it in a different language, they can just do the drop-down menu here, which is brilliant. And next, you also have visual styles. Maybe some are more fun and, things like that, or more formal. So that's really interesting. So Notebook LM for educators. It creates active learning. Move beyond reading, not just text, right? Because it's hard for students really to have a difficulty engaging with text, right? And I understand, they need to be readers. Yes, they do. But, if you really want them to learn, let's take away that barrier, right? So give them different ways to engage with the content. So students can use mind maps. They can, do quizzes for active learning, self-assessments, right? For accessibility, they can, if, for some reason, I don't know, maybe right now they're having a hard trouble, maybe hearing because maybe they have allergies and, I don't know, they can't hear very well. That happens to me. So maybe they can just hear the content instead, right? Oh, sorry, they can view the content instead, right? Also, universal design for learning. It's, you're giving them multimodal, different ways to engage with the content, audio, video, and text. You also have data synthesis. You can use data tables to compare research across dozens of sources simultaneously, and which really saves you hours of manual extraction. Engagement. Use interactive mode as a virtual TA where students can interview their textbook or course readings. It's awesome. So, next tool. These are great, guys. They're really helpful. Nano Banana. So we have an AI image generation and editing tool designed for precision and technical accuracy. So in the past, when I worked with Gemini and other large language models, I asked it to create images and they really weren't very good. Some of them were actually scary looking, like people. They created people that were scary looking. Not anymore. It's gone a long way. So especially Gemini, Nano Banana is with your Google suite of tools. So we have access to that if you do so, right? You do have the free version does have it. I know there are limited capabilities, so it can change, right? Here we go. So this is the Nano Banana, and you're going to be able to find it right underneath the prompting space, the little banana on there. So here is, I said, create an image of a beach in the background and a towel with a book on it. No people. So you've got to tell it exactly what to do and what not to include in it. So that is the image. And it does take a few seconds, which is pretty good. Next, I said, please change the book and make it a worn copy of Pride and Prejudice. And it did. So that was nice. So you can change that. You can change, and you can upload your own materials and then change what's on the image itself. And next, I said, generate an image of a bookshelf office in a modern setting. And it did. And this I used for like my Canvas course. I added like to the card so that it would have this kind of image on the Canvas card for a course. And that's it. So you can create a lot of different things, a lot of different images that we used to have to pay for, but not anymore. So some of the core capabilities. Text rendering. It creates images with accurate, legible typography and infographics. Sometimes it has, titles of things or, something written on the images that is not correct. You have to correct it. So you got to work with it, right? Semantic masking. It modifies specific parts of an image using natural language. So change the outfit, revise the background, add this color. And you can upload pictures and images and, have it recreate them in however you like. Subject consistency. So it maintains the appearance of characters or objects across multiple images. So let's say your students really love Harry Potter. So you might want to create like an assignment that has Harry Potter and you create images for it. You might want to create a presentation with Harry Potter. So it makes the content really engaging. So this is your Gemini. And when you go in there, you have your prompt here, and Nano Banana is going to be a banana with, like half a peel, and it says create image. All you do is click on it and give it your prompt, and you're good. So, more things. You can visualize concepts, replaces text-heavy slides with clear visual metaphors and diagrams to reduce cognitive load. So again, in different presentations and documents, whatever you like. Retention. It empowers educators with no design background. I don't have one. Okay. To create professional infographics that aid student memory. Customization. It tailors visuals to fit specific student interests or abstract topics. So say you have a student that loves baseball, then you'll add like baseball graphics to a story or your assignment, little things like that. And next week, maybe somebody likes, I don't know, let's say the Eagles, right? So you can put like the Eagles logo on there and, it'll just add something a little bit more fun, right? Here's a checklist that you can use. Okay, I'm not going to go through it, but here is my image card that I created for my Canvas course with Nano Banana. And here is a comic strip. You can create comic strips. Isn't this wild? So here in this comic strip, I was talking about backward design, and I wanted to create something where, teachers can visualize why they need to use the backward design model. So infographic has the students that are a little bit like confused and upset about their grade, right? And, so he goes on to create a test using the backward design model, and learning goals are achieved. Here is another one I created. I have faculty that we work with the Canvas LMS. And so, roll call is a tool that we have. And I wanted to create an infographic showing the different things that the tool does and how to enable it. And here's the infographic. I didn't love it, but you can work with it. So the last one is Gemini Storybook. I was a former English teacher for 20 plus years, and narrative stories are my thing, right? So this is something that is really powerful. So Gemini Storybook is a narrative-focused AI tool designed to reframe dry content into compelling stories. Here we go. So in this video, I wanted to show you Storybook. So you may not have Storybook in your Gemini, in your Gemini site. However, all you have to do is create a storybook just like this in the prompt. And this is what I did. So create a storybook of the overview of responses to teachers using AI for grading, as it has many different views on this topic. The audience is teachers who may want to use it for grading, but are a bit afraid. So here we go. And as you can see, it takes a good 5-10 minutes. Maybe it has gotten faster now. I'm not sure. So let me just put it on for you. Here we go. And we're going to listen.
This is Alara. Ilara loved teaching. She loved the sparkle of a student's aha moment and the hum of a busy classroom. But when the learning was done, the grading began. Her dining table became a mountain range of essays, and her weekends melted away into red pen ink. There has to be another way, she sighed. Alara heard murmurs in the staff lounge about a new tool, a clever digital helper that promised to sort, mark, and even comment on papers in the blink of an eye. The promise felt like a life raft in a sea of work.
Okay, and I'm not condone to use the AI for grading. Maybe it can help you create some, feedback. That's it. But anyway, I want to go back to this. So this story, this narrative is called The Pencil and the Platform. It created the title. It creates the images. It has a text on the side. So this is great for dual coding. So students see text and students see pictures and images. And sometimes you even have diagrams in there, which is really great. So this is super helpful for students of all ages. I mean, if you have an elementary school classroom, you can create a storybook about why kindness in the classroom matters. You can create a storybook about middle school students. It doesn't matter, high school, anything you want to, even for college, even for, educators, or if you're, a coach for teachers, the same thing. So that way they can understand why something is, just because it's in a narrative, it has feelings, you can understand it a little better. So it's just a different way to share the content, which is brilliant. So, Gemini core capabilities, storybook. Constructs narrative-driven explanations for complex or abstract concepts. Generates case studies, mystery-based problems, creative scenarios. So, you can do anything with this. So imagine just writing some sort of mystery-based thing, then having your students do an assignment based off the story. So you can do whatever you want. And of course, if you have older students, you can have them creating their own storybooks. And then that way they can create something with that too, right? All right. So you can combat disengagement. So it anchors facts in emotion, because stories have emotions, and storytelling to prevent the isolation felt in online courses. Same thing for students that are having difficulties with a subject, right? Give them a video. Maybe you can personalize it because if they like Harry Potter or something like that, right? So, you can really make it engaging for students to learn the topic that could be a little bit abstract for them. Real-world application. It helps students visualize how technical and theoretical content applies to professional or daily life, so it makes learning relevant. Active narrative encourages students to engage with mystery-based problems that require critical thinking. The sky's the limit with this, guys. You make up your own stories. All right, so moving from content creation to connection. This is the idea. So here's a summary of some of the tools that we've looked at today. Gemini, it's your architect for alignment, making sure that everything aligns with your learning objectives. Ensure every activity has a purpose and every rubric is transparent. Notebook LM, your engine for activity. Turn passive consumption into active multimodal research ecosystem. Nano Banana and Storybook, your palette for multimedia. Use visual and narrative metaphors to make invisible visible. These are just great tools. I love them. Why this matters. Reclaiming your time. We have so much work to do as educators. AI doesn't replace a teacher. No, because teaching it is relational. It replaces the drudgery by automating the back end of course design, creating rubrics, summaries, formatting. You reclaim the time needed for your one-on-one with your students, mentoring them and supporting them. Next, designing for the digital native. Today's students are overwhelmed by text-heavy, static environments. These tools allow you to meet them where they are, with podcasts, infographic, and stories, without needing a degree in graphic design or audio engineering, which I do not have. You're reducing the hidden curriculum. When we use Gemini and any of these tools to clarify objectives, and Notebook LM to provide study guides, we remove the guesswork. We ensure that students are being graded on the mastery of the content, not their ability to navigate a confusing course or a confusing lesson plan. If they did not get the information, we can create, different kinds of study guides or different kinds of learning materials that will really help them engage with the content and learn the content and master the content. Final word. AI is the partner that handles the cognitive load of design, so you can focus on the relational part of teaching, so you can be with your students. Thank you very much for watching. Thank you, Rutgers Online Learning Conference, for having me. My name is Gloria Carrasco. You can reach me at gcarrascoholyfamily.edu. You can also find me on LinkedIn. Have a great day. Bye-bye.